Hey, good morning. How you guys doing? My name's Tom Englehart. Thanks for joining me here on Twitch. Let me know if the audio sounds good, if the music's too loud, too quiet, any of that kind of stuff. But yeah, just today we're going to go over facial animation using FaceWare Retargeter. I did a few videos about this before. We're just going to kind of continue where we left off there, and then you guys can ask any questions you want while I'm going. If for some reason I'm just kind of in the zone and I'm not noticing the chat, there are sound effects like below the video. If you're on a computer, below the video, there's sound effects down there that you can play. So you can play like the duck noise kind of cuts through pretty, the quack. Play that. That'll get my attention and let me know to look up at the chat. But yeah, there's also, it's interesting. I think it's, if you can see my mouse, it's like right to the right of my picture. If you hover over that, there should be like a little animated GIF area where you can share animated GIFs if you want, if it has to do with what we're talking about, or you just want to make me laugh, go for it. But yeah, we will get started. I'm going to continue where I left off here. And actually, before I say that, if you're not already following me on social media, on Twitter, I'm Tom Englehart on Twitter. And then on, let's see here, on Instagram and TikTok, tomenglehart.art on Instagram and TikTok. And then Englehart Animation on YouTube and Twitch. All right. Awesome. Cool. Well, let's get started. So I have a play blast of what this looks like. I think I closed it. Let me pull up the play blast. Actually, I can just do it real quick. We'll play blast this of kind of where we left off. And this is usually how I start a session when I sit down, because a lot of times it's hard to remember where you left off, right? You were kind of in the flow of things, and then the day ends, and then the next day begins, and you're like, okay, where the heck was I? So you kind of want to try to get back into the flow. So I always just start off with a fresh play blast, see where I'm at, and then go from there, kind of come up with a plan of attack after that. And right now we're on the mouth. We did, roughly we did the eyes and the brows, and this is all for demo purposes. Obviously, I would get more detailed if this was for a job, but here's the play blast. And the audio, for some reason, isn't coming through on the play blast, but she's saying, huh? What was that? I thought you locked this place. Okay, so I can tell definitely, like the huh and the what was that is working fairly good. And so we need to get to this, I thought you locked this place. And she's kind of talking with her teeth together. I thought you locked this place, which is going to be difficult. And it's probably going to take a lot more keys than usual because the jaw needs to stay together. Retargeter wants to open the jaw. If you see, like right here, the jaw is opening. And so we'll just have to put in keys to keep the jaw shut while she's talking. And then try to figure out what muscles she's using. And if you haven't seen my previous videos, this rig is free from FaceWare. If you go to FaceWare's website, they have resources there where you can get a free trial of FaceWare Retargeter from their website. And then they have resources there where they have the analyzer file already made for you, so you can bring that into Retargeter. And then they have face rigs you can choose from, and then they have HMC videos, which is what we have here, that you can kind of base your work off of. And yeah, so this rig, though, it's not it's best when you're using a tool like this to use a fax based rig, FACS. So if you haven't looked that up before, that's something to get to know if you want to get into facial animation for video games. You really start to learn and study FACS. Melinda Ozell has a great website. If you look her up, melindaozell.com, where she has lots of resources, and she does this and she does talks for animators. And so she's a scientist that really studies the face. So she is a great resource for that. There's lots of other resources on the internet, so just check them out. But FACS-based rig is based on the muscle movement, right? And so, and then the names of the controls are the names of the FACS system, where they come up with names for different muscles. It's not the actual, sometimes it's the actual names of the muscles, but sometimes it's just a name that helps us understand this is what's happening, right? Like corner puller, right? Stuff like that. So anyways, so if you look into that, it could be a little bit better. But this rig that we got, it's a free one. It's not completely FACS based. Some of the controls have names like the chin raiser. When the chin comes up, it should push the lip up too, right? And a lot of us don't realize we have a muscle on our chin that pushes our lower lip up. So like if you're pouting, so that's your chin raiser pushing your lower lip up higher. But the chin raiser on this rig doesn't push the lip up. So there's things like that. You just kind of have to, like on a job, if you're given a rig like this, you have to find ways around it, you know? And so you kind of just play around with the controls until you can kind of get what you want, but you don't want to overdo it either. Sometimes you might just have to be like, okay, I can't match what the actress is doing exactly, but if you can get a feel for what she's saying or the emotion that she's getting, that's what matters, right? And so, hey, I'm going to look at the chat. Hey, Steven Jace is here. Awesome, cool. JH Haynes, awesome. Hey, guys, thanks for joining. Glad you're here. All right, let me see where I was at. So I thought you locked this place. I thought you locked this place. All right, so right now what we have, the eye is working. We're looking for like maybe the biggest part that's not working right now. Could be like where that jaw is open. So let me frame through this. There it goes. I'm like, why isn't it framing? So where the jaw is open the most on the rig, and it's not open here. So let's pick that that frame, 236. So first I look to see, do I have, these are all the frames where I have keys already. I do not have one at 236, so I'm going to add a frame there, and all I'm going to do is adjust the jaw. Here, let's move this guy over. Make sure I have the mouth selected. So we have, it's been a while since I've messed with this rig, so let's see here, jaw. Maybe right there. We'll just do that for now. And you hit update. Let's compare it to the frames around it. Okay, so if you see on the HMC over here, look at her lower lip and how we can see the gums and stuff down here, right? So then we know on both of these frames. So this frame is kind of set that way where you can see the gums. They're not colored on this rig. It's white, but it should be red down there or pink. All right, so we want this lip to kind of match this lip. You see how, at least how low it is, and a little bit of how tight it is. So lower lip. Okay, anything that says lower lip, lower lip. Lower, lower, lower. This is confusing. All right. All right, so we want to be able to see. Let me update that so that I can go back and forth. So these two poses. So we want a little bit more tightener. Is there a tightener? There's fat and thin. So we can make it thinner at least. So that's one of those things where it's like, I wish there was a tightener on the lips, but so instead I'm going to have to use this lower fat and thin to kind of simulate that. Okay, and we want to match, you see her, the stretchers here. So stretchers, if you've watched the previous video, stretchers, you can see this muscle in the neck, and it pulls your corners down and out like this. And so you can tell she's using stretchers here. I think so that's under the corner controls, stretcher. Okay, so we have stretcher activated. Let's do it a little bit more. And then update. So update, what update does is, so every time you make a change, first of all, when you're changing the rig, it's only changing it in Maya until you hit update. And what update does is it takes what pose you have in Maya and puts it into Retargeter. So if you tried to retarget without ever updating it, Retargeter doesn't have any information from you yet, so it's not going to work. So whenever I make a change and then I want to like compare, I always hit update. So just kind of get used to hitting update. So we're comparing the difference between these two poses. Okay, so the jaw is moving too much between these two. I want to match this one, so let's see the number. In the channel box, we can see negative 1.222. So we can just match that. We're close. Negative 1.222. Update. And it's still moving, so there must be like maybe some sort of jaw forward happening here. So let's take a look at that. Jaw forward and back, 4.419. So 4.419. Update. There, now the jaw is the same, which is what we want. Okay, so now we can go ahead and hit retarget. So retargeting just takes all the poses you gave it and then fills out the timeline on ones and works out any in-betweens that you need between the poses. So you can see the list of poses I have here. This is all the information I gave it on the mouth, just these poses. Frame 13 all the way through frame 242 on those frames, and then Retargeter filled in the rest. So let's go to that part. All right, it's still kind of jumpy, but it's probably gonna be. We can always fix things in the graph editor afterwards, but I want it to be as clean as possible. So it looks like it's you see the stretcher engages there and then all of a sudden it's gone. So we need to keep some stretcher in whatever pose this is. So that's 242. So we want to look at how much stretcher do we have in 236. It's on corners. 3.719. 3.719. And we see that that's too much for this one. So let's dial that back. So 2.019. Update. And we'll just match that here. Kind of stinks because I'd like to have more stretch on that pose, but like I said, you're dealing with limitations of your rig. So you kind of have to just be okay with it. It's not going to be perfect. So, hey, Sherlem. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Everybody grab your coffee. Let's animate. All right, we're retargeting. Like I said, at any time you guys want to ask a question, go ahead, put it in the chat. If I'm in the flow and I'm not paying attention, go ahead and use the sound effects, like the quack sound is the best one to get my attention. All right. See, so like this pose with that ooh, that's a place where I would really like to use the chin raiser. So you see how the muscles, if you look at the muscles in her chin, it's pushing that lower lip up. But like I said, on this rig, the chin raiser doesn't do that, so I'm not going to use that. I might finesse that control later, but if I add it right now, it's just going to confuse things. I would, if it also moved the lower lip, I would put it into the solve right now. Solve is another word that people use for retargeting. So if you ever hear anybody say face solve, that's what they're talking about. Or, hey, this solve isn't that good, or whatever, that's what they're talking about, is using a tool like Retargeter to figure out what the mouth is doing. So that's what the face is doing. So that's a solve, face solve. All right, but you see now it's a little bit more fluid because we matched the, and there's still some jitter on so that jaw jitter right there, we're going to clean that up later, because you don't want to put in too many keys into Retargeter to make things, then it's going to mess up the rest of your shot, right? So it's like, okay, I tried to keep the jaw closed as much as I could, and for now, that's close enough. Another thing you'll notice that I'm ignoring right now is you see how her mouth is angled. It's kind of like the screen right side is higher than the screen left side. I'm doing that a little bit with some of the muscles, but the overall shift of the mouth, I'm going to save that for later, because if you start to put that into the solve, and then maybe you do it in some parts, but you forget to do it in other parts, all of a sudden the mouth is moving all over the place, and then you're like, wait, is that a control? Then you start adjusting muscle controls, and instead it should have been the overall mouth. So I like to try to just get a clean solve with the mouth center at first, and then I can go back through all the poses with that in mind of where is the mouth located. Is it off to the right? Is it off to the left? And then also work in jaw left and right as well. And so in the initial poses, I try to put in jaw left and right just to try to see if it will automatically put that in throughout the solve. But then I just kind of ignore it as much as possible until after we have a clean solve. We'll go back through, check our poses, because as soon as we're done with Retargeter, we get everything looking good. Then what I do is I just shut off Retargeter and don't use it anymore. And then the rest of it is just all animation, graph editor, changing poses, all that kind of stuff. So. Okay, so this, let's see, what is she saying right there? Locked this place. So let's get this, that's like a pressure P. Find the key. So I'm going to scrub through, find like where there's a change of direction, right? And so where it's at its most extreme, which is right here. Because you see she goes into this pucker and then starts to come out right there. So when she's in the most pucker, the pressure's there and it starts to change direction. Right before it changes direction, that's where I'm going to put a key. So add, I'm just going to put a P here just so I remember that that's the P for place. Okay, and then let's start working in the rig. Okay, so we already have some pucker. I wonder, a lot of this is going to be some trial and error. If we get rid of the O, it brings the lips together. So we can kind of finesse these guys. We don't need any O. So she's kind of narrow. So I'm looking at the corners here. So this pucker kind of is supposed to push the lips together in like a kiss. So we're looking at the corners as I'm adjusting that. And just a reminder, when you highlight one of these channels in the channel box, come over here, you can middle mouse drag to move that value. Okay, now you see how there's pressure on these lips. They're really pressing against each other. So there's lip pressure. Let's see how that works. So on this rig, it just kind of presses them down. It doesn't give you that texture on the lips. Some rigs, it will almost do exactly what she's doing, where you use some lip presser and then you got some tightener and stuff, and it really starts to make it look like that. It'll change even the texture of the lips, which is really nice. Okay, so pressure. What else we got? The corners are down. So let me update before I do anything else. And then just so I can look at where she was before. Yes, we definitely want to bring the corners down. Here, the corners kind of up here. Corners like kind of in the middle here. So on this P, let's see. Yeah, she still should have a little stretcher. Let's bring the corners down. Hey, we just got a new follower. Awesome. Woo. Cool. Hi, Shashi23. Hello. Thanks for joining. Awesome. All right, so we were bringing her lip corners down. I wish we could get lip presser looking better here, but update so we can compare. And then you see how the chin muscle is happening here. So let me see if I can bring up that chin razor and just see. See how the chin razor just moves that muscle, but not the lip too. So kind of got to be careful with it. I'll use it a little bit. Update. All right. Is there any sort of tightener? There's presser. There's the fat and thin. No. Undo that. All right. For now, we'll just leave it like that. Retarget. So because this rig isn't fax based, we're not going to be able to match exactly what she's doing. So we'll just get it close enough for now. We can always massage it later and kind of play around in the graph editor to try to get it as close as possible. But you don't want to mess around with too many controls when you're retargeting. You want to try to keep it simple. So just be cautious when you're adding all these extra little controls because it could mess up your entire solve. Shashi, thanks for the heart. It's awesome. Cool. All right, it retargeted. We're going to check right here. So she says, I thought you locked this place with her teeth together. Locked this place. Okay, so now we can see the next part is this. See how our lips kind of come out with our teeth together? So that's the funneler. When your lips are coming out, kind of like blossoming out, and then you can see a lot of the inside of the lip. That's funneler. And so that's kind of letting me know, especially when you can see a lot of the gums under the teeth. And then you see here it's sticking out, especially on the right side. I don't know if it gives me control of the funneler on left and right. It does not. So that's another thing. So if I had a fax-based rig, I would be able to control funneler on the upper, her upper left and her upper right separately. So that way she can have more funnel on this side than on that side. But I don't have that here. That's okay. Let's find the most extreme where she's funneled. So right there. Add a pose. I might just write funnel, just so I know. Okay, so funneler, need more. So you see what the funneler does there? And what we're gonna have to do is remember that we had this fat and thin turned on. Turn that off so the lips are normal size. Lips forward and back. Let's just zero these out to see what it looks like. Okay, I'm going to undo that. Alright, and so in order to get more of a square on the bottom, that's telling me that it needs more stretcher. Okay. Now this corner seems a little higher. I think I have separate control. I'm going to update. Yeah, I have right corners and left corners. So bring the upper or the right corner up a little bit more. Update. Left corner can come up a little bit. Okay. Now, we might need a little bit more pucker, even though she's not really puckering. This is just one of those things where I'm trying to use what's on the rig. Well, let me see what this O does. Hold on a sec. Okay, we're taking out the O. You always got to kind of check and make sure if there's controls that you used before that you don't need to get rid of those. Okay. So pucker, we might be able to use to get those corners in more. Normally, it's not the best idea to use pucker and funneler at the same time, but sometimes you have to. But yeah, if you had a better control of the corners on the rig and stuff, you might be able to get away with not doing that if you had more like tighteners and pressers and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, let me see. I think there's a question. Is this workflow similar to facial animation used at most game studios? Does each studio have their own proprietary tools or workflows for capturing facial animation? Yes. Yes and yes. A lot of places have their own proprietary tools, but this is similar. It's all based on the same type of thing. And they have to use a tool like this, or they're using some sort of facial mocap, which is not necessarily accurate. If they are using just like a facial mocap type of thing, then it's just not going to look as good, but maybe they don't care. If you really want realistic, with the muscles moving and all that kind of stuff and trying to get the face to look just right. So like if you watch a lot of the stuff on God of War Ragnarok, if you see a lot of the fleshiness of the face that you would not be able to get out of facial mocap, and so using a tool like this, at PlayStation, it's a proprietary tool. So I can't talk about that, but I can tell you it's similar to this, right? So FaceWare Retargeter. So like, if you're looking into getting into facial animation for video games, definitely learn FaceWare Retargeter. If you know it before you go apply for the job, you can write that on your resume. You have experience, or put it under your skills. I know FaceWare Retargeter. That could get you a leg up on other people, because then they won't have to train you. Right now, that's the thing across studios is they bring in animators, but then they have to train them how to use a tool like Retargeter, which takes a long time, at least 3 weeks of training, and that's full time. At least 3 weeks of training to get used to it, because it's a different way of animating. It's a different way of thinking. And once you start getting these large files, because at first I was like, oh man, I could hand key this faster, until I realized I was going to get 10,000 frames in a shot. I'm like, there's no way I can hand key that, and so you have to use a tool like this, and it gets you 70%, 80% of the way there, and then you can go in and hand key the rest, add animation layers, whatever else. But yeah, this is definitely similar to what video game studios use. The good ones. The good ones use it. Like I said, if they don't care, they just will, how you can use your phone to do some facial mocap and then put it on a avatar, and then that's it. There's not a lot of thought and heart that goes into that, So, coffee break. Hello, Alan. Thanks for joining us. Good to see you. It's great. So yeah, thank you, Jose Munoz, for that question. I forgot to shout out who asked that question, but yeah, thank you for that question. All right, let's get back to this pose. I'm going to update because I don't remember if I did or not. So this is that funneler pose, and then what we can do is, you see how her jaw is not together, so we can bring her jaw together. What was that? Negative 1.222, something like that. So now we're just comparing. So I want to get more of a square lip on the bottom, right? And so I'm trying to figure that out. Lower lip, it looks like there's 3 controls. So maybe I bring we have lower lip. It's right here. Lower lip, center. So I have to use these in a way where they kind of work together. Maybe I can bring the left and right down, and then bring the center up. I don't know. It looks like it's just not going to happen with this ray. That might be as good as we're going to get. Update. Like I said, that's probably as good as we're going to get. Is there a lip roll maybe on the upper lip roll? Upper lip roll. Oh, we do have left and right for upper lip roll. So that might help. Oh man, all it does is look fatter. Well, we can throw it in a little bit. Give the idea. Okay. And then, I can't remember, is the nose on the facial? Is on the mouth? I think it is. So you see how she's got her nostril kind of up there too, and that's pulling that side of the lip. So a good rig will also do that if you sorry, I'm thinking. So on a good rig, if you bring up the nose here, it will also bring up the upper lip, right? So let's just go ahead and you see. So this kind of does it. It brings up, like, that's extreme, but you see how the lip is kind of moving with it? It'd be nice if the whole section of this lip came up with it too. But we're just going to go for the feel. Alright, let's retarget. And we'll see. Awesome tool. Yeah, I think so too. As soon as at first I hated it. When I was learning it, I hated this tool. I'm like, why do I got to use this? And then after you start to see how it works, it really helps if you know, like if you studied 2D, like hand-drawn animation, or just pose-to-pose work, where you have the extremes. So you have extreme poses, and then you have a breakdown. And what you're looking for is, like if you're watching video reference, what you're looking for is like, where do you want to put the keys? Is wherever there, first, if there's a contact, So if a hand touches a table or if the foot touches the floor, you need a key there. So whenever there's a contact, you need a key. And that's the same thing with this, is whenever the lips come together or the eyes come together, there definitely needs to be a key there. If it changes direction, so like if you're watching video of someone, maybe you're trying to get a walk down, if you see a body part start to change direction, so that's how you find an extreme. So like, say my arm's all the way forward and then it starts to go back the other way. Well, I'm going to go back and find that frame where right before it started to change direction, and that's the extreme, and that's where I need a key. So that's really what you're doing throughout a shot with retargeters. You're looking for those extremes, and then you might need to throw in some breakdowns. I usually just start with extremes to see what it looks like, and then I'd start to problem solve. And if you like problem solving and troubleshooting, which is something I like, which is weird, I know people don't like troubleshooting. If you don't like it, then maybe you shouldn't get into animation, because a lot of animation is troubleshooting and problem solving. And if you enjoy that, then this is for you. But that's a lot of what this is, because then I just kind of scrub through and see, all right, now where is it not working? So the computer is only as smart as I make it, right? And sorry if you hear stuff in the background. My son is playing with our dog. But the computer, retargeter, is only as smart as the information I give it. So it's like I'm teaching it to help me. So I'm looking at the path of the upper lip here. So you see how the upper lip is coming down on the rig? Now I'm looking at the HMC, and it looks like her upper lip stays up for a while before it starts to come down here. So I'm going to see if I can kind of get that to happen. So you see between these two, let's look at how much of the top of these teeth you can see. Here you can see all of the top of the teeth. Here you can sort of see the top of the teeth on this side of the mouth. So I want a little bit more there. So let's see, upper lip, that's her left upper lip. And can't quite see the gums. And maybe her upper lip right can come up slightly. Something like that. All right. So that's probably better. Let's retarget. So you're always looking for the path of different things. And if you can kind of, as you're scrubbing through, look at different parts. Look at the upper lip, look at the lower lip, look at the corners. Look at the jaw, look at the nostrils. That's the way to do it, and you kind of just got to train your eye to look for those things every time. It's easy to overlook some of it, and you're kind of like, oh, that's close enough, and then you move on. But yeah, anybody have any questions so far? Is this interesting to you? Hopefully, and it's interesting to me. It's fun. What I might try to do in the future is see if I can get a hold of a fax-based rig so you can see the difference. And I haven't looked through all of the free rigs on FaceWare. Maybe there's a fax-based one there, but maybe I'll probably just download all those and check them out and see. All right. Okay, see, so now her upper lip stays up longer and then comes down. So just from that, adjusting that one pose, I got that motion to work better. So play, her jaw comes open there, so we don't want that. So let's see where the extreme, so I'm looking at the HMC, place, so that's probably the extreme right there. So it's like a gritted teeth with an A. You don't always have to write descriptions. It's just like, maybe it's really more for you later if you have to compare. So you see on these that I didn't write anything. I have no idea what those poses are. If I named them, I would know better how to compare it. So let's go ahead and... But sometimes you're in the flow and you don't want to name it. And that's fine, it's just up to you whatever works best for you. I'm going to start with that negative 1.222 that we used earlier. Start there and then compare and see. Let's compare it to this one. So yeah. So you see how the teeth, we're looking at the teeth. A good indicator of where the jaw is where the teeth are, right? Because if the jaw opens, the teeth are further apart. If the jaw closes, teeth are closer together. So anytime that you can see a pose where you can see the teeth, those are just great, landmarks for you that help you know if you're on the right track as far as the jaw goes. So 242 to 269. So one of the differences is there's funneler on the lower lip, and the lower lip comes down, and this upper lip on her left should be a little bit more down, so it's almost symmetrical to the other side. So let's start with the upper lip. Her upper lip left. Can bring that down. And we need more funneler. Funneler. And then need that lower lip to come down more. Let's just try the left and right. And it looks like the thinner came back on. Oh. Let's type in 0. Update. And she might have a little bit of stretcher. So let's look at the stretcher, see where that's at. Oop, highlighted too much. Corners, stretcher. That's probably good. Okay, so that's updated. Let's compare it. Let's look at the nose. So the nose should be back to normal. So actually you see here on this one, the left side of her nose actually comes up too, well, screen left. So that's her right nostril. I can bring that up a little bit on this previous pose. And if this is like when you highlight a channel and you middle mouse drag here, if it's moving too fast, you can always change the settings right here. So this is the speed, this center one. So if you click it, that's the fastest setting. So now it'll like go through these numbers really fast. If you click it again, it's the slowest setting. So now I have to drag really far to bring it down. You see that? So you can really get some minute detail with that. I like to go to the second setting. And I turn the manipulators off, which is this right here. So if you ever want to turn manipulators off, that way when I highlight these, I don't see manipulators in the way. Okay, so I'm going to, here, let's bring it down close to 0. I'm just bringing that screen left side of the nostril up slightly. We can compare it to neutral. It's always a good thing to compare to neutral to see where you're at. See if you got too far off base. So that looks about right. Alrighty. And let's see. Okay, that's probably good. Let's retarget it. Awesome. All right. I have not watched. So Shashi. Shashi. Sorry if I don't pronounce your names right. I try my best. Shashi23. I have not watched your previous video, so I apologize for any stupid questions. But at what point do you know that you're going to start hand key and polish? Awesome. There's no stupid questions. It's fine if you haven't seen the old videos, the other videos. But I do recommend that you go back and watch them. Usually your lead will let you know, like if you're in a studio position, your lead will be giving you feedback on your shot. And so they're going to, work with you and tell you retarget, adjust these poses, retarget again, get these looking right. And as soon as it gets to a point where your lead, or your animation supervisor sees it and says, okay, that retarget is good, now you can move on to animation. So usually you just lean into your lead. If you're doing a shot on your own, it's really just a tool for you. It's up to you. It's how much time you want to save. So I would say get it as far as you can with Retargeter, because it's going to save you a lot of time hand keying. And so if you're just using the tool the best you can. And so if you think it's as close as you can get it with Retargeter, and you're like, I don't see any other spots where I can finesse this, or if I put a pose here, it might make it look better, it might make it look worse. That's another thing you can do while you're troubleshooting, is you see these check marks over here on the left of Retargeter. These are turning on and off the poses. So like if I want to retarget again but turn off some poses, I can uncheck them. So like if you're like, maybe this pose is causing a problem, just uncheck it, retarget again. And if that problem's still there, then it wasn't that pose. But if the problem goes away, then you realize, okay, there's a problem with that pose, and you can go in and either fix it or just delete it. So you just kind of keep working with it until it's the best it can be, and then you go into animation. Like I said, you don't want to go to animation too soon, because it's harder to go back to retargeting after you started putting in animation information. You can do it, it's just harder. So hopefully that helps. Alan says, normally how much time do you have to make a shot like this? So generally it's probably a week. Most of my shots I would have a week to get what you consider a good first pass of Retargeter and hand key. So that's the whole process of maybe a couple days to retarget and get the retarget looking good, and then maybe a couple days. So maybe like a shot like this, I just shortened it to, we're only doing 312 frames. So that maybe it might only take 4 days. Maybe a couple days to get the retarget looking good, and then a couple days to hand key and polish. We call it polish, but it's still a first. This is all considered a first pass, right? Because a lot of times when you're working for a studio, they're working for a client, and so you're trying to get the shot as good as possible for the studio. Then the studio says, yes, we like it. Now we're going to send it to the client and get notes from the client. And so then the client will come back and tell you, yes, we love it, or no, do this. Or, they'll just say, they might not even say we love it. They might just say, all right, go ahead and clean that up or polish it some more, and so it depends on how much time they give you to the client, what their budget is. If they have a budget to let you go ahead and go in and clean it up some more, then fine. Or they might just say that what's considered a first pass of everything, they might just say, hey, that's good, we're going to use that. And a lot of times it is good enough for the games, because sometimes you can get into way too many little details, and you can start to finesse something so much that it starts to look worse, right? And so you don't want to just keep noodling for noodling's sake. You just want to fix the most stuff that makes it look, first of all, you want it to read well. If you hear that a lot, people say, it needs to read well. That just means you're communicating a story, right? When I'm talking to you, I'm communicating. If I'm not, enunciating my words well enough, you won't know what I'm saying and you won't understand me. It's the same with drawings, pictures, animation, poses. It needs to be enunciated enough, not over enunciated, but enunciated enough to tell the emotion and to tell the story, to communicate. So when you hear someone say, well, that's not reading very well, that's what they mean. It's not communicating. It's not telling me the emotion. It's not telling me the story. And so you want your stuff to read well. That's the most important thing. So you don't necessarily want to match the reference one-to-one. If that's all you're doing is matching reference, then you're not telling your story, right? Because part of animation is not just copying real life, but enhancing it and finding, how do you know what to enhance? You try to find the things that really communicate what you want to communicate, and then you exaggerate those things, right? One thing I've noticed about video game animation is exaggeration is not necessarily what you're going for in the entire face. Like hand-keyed, maybe cartoony animation, you want to exaggerate everything. But with more realistic video game stuff, you don't necessarily, you kind of got to turn the exaggeration part of your brain off a little bit, because subtle is a little bit better and more realistic. And then you just want to maybe finesse it a little bit, in a polish pass. That's where you might want to push things a little bit more, see how far you can take it before it doesn't look real anymore. But anyways, hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, no problem. All right, Shashi, that's how my name is pronounced. Awesome. Cool. All right, those are good questions, guys. All right, we got about 10 minutes left. Let's see what else we can get in here. Like I said, you see how the jaw's chattering there? That's something I'm coming to the realization that I will handle that later. It's a frustration of the rig, and just the fact that she's talking with her jaw closed, which doesn't normally happen. And so that's just one of those things where that'll be easy to clean up later. And usually when I get into cleaning up the graph editor, I'll start with the jaw. So I can highlight the jaw, open up the graph editor, and we have up and down jaw here, right? So let's see. So during this whole section, make sure I'm on the right control. It should be this control. So if you highlight a section and hit F, it zooms in on that area. So let's just move a key just to see what this is controlling. So this is the jaw. Okay, and it looks like up is up, down is down. Sometimes on a rig, it depends on how they rig it. Sometimes up is down and down is up, which gets confusing. So I'm glad that this one is up and down is down. So we see how you can see it right here. The jaw comes down for one frame and then comes back up again. So we can use this is where I use Animbot a lot. So let's find a frame where it looks like how I want it. So maybe this frame here. So you can, if you highlight that key, you can look up over here and see what that value is. So this key is at negative 209, negative 1.209, right? And what I can do is, so is this key roughly the same? It's pretty close. Here, I'm going to ease these guys into this key first. So this ease editor right here on Animbot, it's also down here, the green one that says EA, ease. So when you click more towards the right, I don't know if you guys can see it, it's underneath. Here, I'll use the one down here because it's underneath my picture, isn't it? Yeah. All right, sweet. So down here, ease editor. If I click closer to this side, this is favoring the pose to the right, and it only works. Animbot only works on what you have highlighted, right? So it doesn't necessarily matter where the play bar is, but these guys are highlighted, and I want these to ease into this key. So I'm going to ease towards that key there, and you see how now it just kind of gently slopes into that key. Now these guys, I want all of these to kind of just ease evenly to that key. So I can just click right in the middle of this ease, and it moved all of those keys kind of straight. A lot of times you don't want to use the even key because even motion and animation looks too robotic, and it's just, steady movement, which is more of like a robot. And we usually ease out of something and then go fast and then ease into something, right? And that's, slow in, slow out. That's one of the principles of animation. So that's what you got to remember. But in this instance, since the jaw is staying shut, easing evenly is fine because we want it to stay steady. Now, I'm not going to completely flatten this line because there could be maybe some subtle movements of the jaw that I want. I just don't want it to come open. Like here, it's kind of opening a little too much, right? So I might even these keys out. And there the jaw opens again, right? So let's grab all of these. Kind of even that out. Another thing you could do if you're not going to even it and you still want some of that wavering there is you can use a pull tool, which I set it up a hotkey where I hit, of course now it's not working. Never mind, hotkey's not working. Maybe that's at work. That's on my work computer. Never mind. I need to set up a hotkey where I can get the push-pull tool to show up on the screen. Another way to do it is to just open up this green. So if you want to see more of these green sliders, you can click on this arrow down here. And then you'll see all these options here. PP is push-pull. And so let's say I wanted to get these closer to each other, but I still want a little bit of that movement in there. So push-pull will just pull these closer together, but there's still some movement. So it kind of flattens it out. The contrast of that is, let's say I wanted more. So that's push-pull. So push makes, you see how it just made that even more? So that's what that tool does. So we can kind of just pull back slightly. That way the jaw's kind of moving a little bit, but the teeth are still mostly together. So anyways, are there any other questions? So I guess I'm saying right now, since I started going in the graph editor, we're getting rid of Retargeter just for now, because I wanted to show you guys an example of what I would do in the graph editor. So I would start with the jaw. Let's just take this section, right? Let's start with the jaw, and then I would see, are there other areas that I can make better, you know? Like right here, you see how her, maybe I didn't get into any cheek animation. Is there a way that I can push those cheeks for this saying right here, right in this section, right? And so we have cheeks right here. And yeah, there's no up and down. There might not even be any keys on cheeks at all. Let's see. I don't think there are. So the cheeks are up right there. Yeah, those are the first keys that I've put on cheeks because I didn't put that into my solve. So what I would probably do before I got into the graph editor, I jumped in there too soon. And this is a good example of why you don't want to jump in too soon, is I would notice and be like, okay, where can I put the cheeks into the solve, and then put them in. Let's just do that now. We've got a couple more minutes, right? Oh, FaceWare. And what frame is this? 242. So I can go through all these and go, all right, now I'm only focusing on cheeks, right? Let's bring the cheeks up here. So that's all the way. It looks like this cheek is up higher than this cheek. So I might take this cheek, bring it down a little bit, update. And this time, before I retarget, I'm going to go through all of them and just look at the cheeks. So cheeks are kind of down there. I don't think I have a down cheek. It's just 0, which is fine. Which means maybe at neutral the cheeks are up a little bit, just a tiny bit. But I'm not going to do that now. We can adjust that later. Okay, so you see the difference here between 69 and 108, how the cheeks go up. Looking at the cheekbone over here. See how that's up a little bit? It's just slight, but it helps if you bring that in. Let's just go up to 1. Sometimes I type in a number just so I know where I'm at. A little bit more manageable. So then let's look, 69. So now you can see on the rig, between 69 and 108, the cheeks are going up slightly. It just helps tie the cheeks and the nose, help tie the eyes and the mouth together, right? And so if you look at some animation and you just see, maybe you see great mouth animation, you see great eyes and eyebrows animation, but there's nothing in the middle, it just feels disconnected and it doesn't feel real. So the real magic happens in the nose and the cheeks that can help tie everything together. So when you're polishing, you're getting further on in, like, I would hold off on a lot of that until you get later into the process, because those are more of the details that you want to add that ties everything together. Because if you do it too early, you might guess something wrong. You know, maybe I'm like moving the cheek here, but then later on I find out I don't want that. Now I have to go back and fix all that stuff. So you always want to start broad and then work your way down into more details. I know it's 8 o'clock, but I just want to go a little bit further with this, with the cheeks. Okay, we got cheeks are up there. So let's do what we did before, where we go all the way. Then the left one, the screen left one, comes down a little bit. Let's go to 2. Update. And then we'll compare the cheeks. We can compare to neutral. That's probably about right. Another thing I noticed, so when I brought that cheek up all the way, it didn't bring up that lower lid, right? And so that's something we can adjust later. We can go back to the eyes and adjust that. Right now I'm just focusing on the mouth, but I can think about that. It's like, as I adjust the cheeks, I might see something that's wrong with something else. So the cheeks go up, the lower lid's going to go up. So you see how this screen right lid is flat, the lower lid, and this one's more rounded. So that shows me that this cheek is up higher and it's pushing that lower lid up. So between these two, it's probably very similar. I'll just leave it for now. Okay, that one's up. Cheeks are up, but maybe not all the way. For now, let's just go all the way, and then we can work our way back. So 2.54 is all the way. Let's say 2.3, 2.2. Let's try that. And then this one can be like 1.7. Update. We can compare that. So you see how now you can feel that in this part of the face? Without the cheek moving, it was like the eyes and the mouth were not connected. It's all the same. Cheeks move slightly here. So let's just grab them both. Move them up like 0.7. Sometimes it's just arbitrary. And then they're up a lot here, which I already did, it looks like. Good. This one, they're up slightly. It's 0.7. Oh, I gotta grab both of them. 0.7. And then once I'm done with this, we'll retarget it and then we'll be done for today. So it looks like they're probably still up. If you see like someone's kind of grimacing here, it's hard to tell if her cheeks are up or not. You kind of look at the lower lids to give you an idea. You know, she's kind of grimacing, not grimacing, but squinting, you know. All right, update. So let's retarget. So now this is you're gonna see this. This is the cheeks right here in the graph editor. All of a sudden that's going to be filled out. So you see all the poses I put in. I only put in a few poses. And then the cheeks are going to be animated now all throughout the shot on ones. Any final questions? Because as soon as this is done, I got to head out. And the more poses you put in, the longer it takes to retarget. So there's that, right? Okay, so now, yeah, that's weird that it's not showing up on the graph editor. Huh. It did not include, maybe the cheek, you know what, the cheeks are probably in the eye thing, so that's something you need to know ahead of time. That's my bad. Yeah, it says it right here. So like, let me see, face groups. Might be on character setup. You know what? I'll have to look that up later, guys, and let you know. It's good to know. It was a while ago when I set this up. It's good to know if your cheeks and your nose. So a lot of times maybe you'll have your nose in with your mouth group, because there isn't, if you see here, we have brows, eyes, and mouth. And so the cheeks can sometimes be with the mouth, the cheeks and the nose together with the mouth, or sometimes people put the cheeks with the eyes. It looks like I put the cheeks with the eyes, but I didn't make a note to myself because it's been a while since I've touched this file, and I didn't realize that. And so the retarget didn't work on the cheeks because I put it into the facial poses and the mouth poses, but I should have put it into the eye poses, which is fine. That's something easy I can copy over later. But yeah, so oops, there's a mistake. But anyways, all right. You guys say, Steven says, looking good. Alan says, haha, cool. Awesome, guys. Well, that's it for today. Sorry I have to end on making a mistake, but hey, that's how you learn, right? You got to fail, try things out. You fail, you learn from it. But yeah, don't be afraid to just experiment, try things out, fail a lot. That's how you learn. So download FaceWare Retargeter. You got, I think it's a 30-day trial. Try it out. I think they have like an indie license that's not too expensive. So after that, kind of like Maya has the indie license. So if you're a freelancer, if it's something you want to use for work, for your own freelancing work, that might be something you look into. But yeah, maybe if you're at a school, ask your school if they can get an educational license, and they can talk to FaceWare and see if they can make that happen. So anyways, thanks for joining us, guys. Shashi says, love it. Thank you. Alan says, I'll try. Awesome. Cool, guys. So yeah, anytime you guys have any questions, go on social media, look me up. You can send me messages. So like I said, on Twitter, I'm Tom Englehart on Twitter, at Tom Englehart. On Instagram and TikTok, I'm tomenglehart.art. That's on Instagram and TikTok. And then Englehart Animation is on Twitch and YouTube. Englehart Animation. So awesome. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time.